Newsbrief. Jam City has acquired the Berlin-based Studio 231 Play, now rebranded as Jam City Germany, as detailed in a press release. Studio founders Matthias and Thomas Hoechsmann will remain on staff to oversee development and operations. 231 Play is best known for titles like Game Doctors, which was acquired by Zynga in 2011, and Zombie Slash, while terms of the acquisition were not publicly disclosed. This purchase marks the first of Jam City's European operations. The company has global studios based in the United States, Argentina, Colombia, and Canada. Activision Blizzard has appointed 3 company veterans to lead its main operating units, with the U.S. giant having experience of some high-profile departures since the turn of the year. Call of Duty Executive Vice President and General Manager Rob Kostich has been named President of Activision, having overseen the development of the company's most iconic franchise for the past decade. In his new role, Kostich will be responsible for steering game development, strategy, and operations across Activision as a whole. Elsewhere, Humam Sakhnini has been made president of King Digital Entertainment, after serving as the group's chief financial officer and chief strategic officer since 2016. He will now be charged with overseeing the division's operational management in tandem with King CEO Riccardo Zacconi. Finally, Dennis Durkin, who was recently reappointed as the key foe of Activision Blizzard following the unceremonious departure of Spencer Neumann, will also be stepping up as president of the company's emerging business group. In his expanded role, Durkin will oversee the operational management of Activision Blizzard Esports leagues, Activision Blizzard Studios, and Activision Blizzard Consumer Products Group, as originally posted in the Rise via devblog. Let's talk a bit about what this post is about. This is not a post detailing the progress of each individual mechanic of the game from iteration to iteration, about how time and experience influenced our design decisions. This is not a technical post. It's more about production rather than development. These posts will come later. So if you are interested in that, just be patient, and I promise I will deliver. What the hell is Rise? You may ask. Well, Rise is a puzzle game in which you have a simple goal. Use symmetries to generate beams that activate some sort of mechanism, while finding ways around blockers. That's it. Rise is that simple. It could be a mobile game made with debuted within a month or 2. So why did it take us 5 years to even start making it? Akin to a child, the first iteration of Rise was all over the place, absorbing everything from its environment, and constantly falling on its face while performing even the simplest of tasks. Yet it was full of potential waiting to be harvested. Rise was conceived during the Prometheus Game Jam, organized by the National Technical University of Athens, in July 2017. Even though softworks existed as a team of different individuals for about 4 years, already had just solidified our line-up and started the company. Furthermore, it was the first time all 4 of us would get a chance to work together on a game that was not commissioned by a client, and were justifiably excited. The jam was taking place in the Lavrion Technological and Cultural Park, an hour-long drive from the center of Athens. The place is a huge complex of stone buildings that reminded me of those old abandoned places you always seem to stumble upon in horror games. During the weekend, only the gamers had access to the place, and we were free to explore and get inspired by it. Words cannot describe how much I loved the place. It was hands down the best venue I have ever jammed in. and I have jammed in a castle, in the middle of a lake, in Sweden. Of course, all good things must come to an end. The theme was disappointing to say the least. I am not sure how that came to pass, but the organizers decided that the theme for the Prometheus Game Jam should be, well, Prometheus Oh well, we work with what we have. In Greek mythology, Prometheus was the titan that stole fire from the Olympian gods and gave it to humanity, thus kick-starting our civilization. It is a nice myth that made something very clear to us. We had to play with fire. A few hours of talking and doodling, and we had decided on our course of action. Rise was going to be a third-person puzzle exploration game set in a dark post-apocalyptic world, with prominent themes of fire and sacrifice. You would solve puzzles by spreading fire to altars that would lift some environmental constraint that halted your progress. To make our world seem richer, we had the protagonist give exposition in the form of transitional audio between the puzzles. Development went surprisingly smoothly, despite hitting some speed bumps over arguments concerning the art style and suffering a couple of nervous breakdowns. 48 hours later, and we were pretty satisfied with the result. Unfortunately, the judges were not. A problem I have with competitive game jams that offer monetary rewards is an artificial feeling of authority the judges often radiate. It's easy to assume that if a panel of people did not find your game worthy of any recognition, your game must be trash. If I remember correctly, the jam had 3 winners and 7 honorable mentions, 4 categories like narrative, art, innovation, etc. We won nothing. We are not sore losers, but after 48 hours, with almost no sleep, it's easy to get depressed. We are finally professional game developers. How bad is this thing? It did not win anything. Amateurs fared better than us. I now realize that this kind of thinking is idiotic. No panel can judge the value of a game. Not everyone will like it, and that's okay. The players will always have the final say. Of course, no game is perfect, but if no one gets any feedback from the judges, winning can be worse than losing. I am of the opinion that the secret to improving the game lies in a fundamental belief that the game is flawed. After all, you cannot fix that which is already perfect. In retrospect, I am happy we lost that game jam. If we won, I think that the journey of Rise would end 48 hours after it began. In any case, after suffering such a defeat, we needed some time to recuperate. Now of the opinion that Rise had nothing to offer on a commercial level, we retreated to our hometowns to wait out the summer. During this iteration, Rise, as most teenagers, was struggling to find an identity. It had some questionable beliefs and experimented a lot. It was obsessed with space and insisted it was going to be an astronaut when it grew up. Because of us being a business that sells primarily to corporate clients, we have what we jokingly call an exhibition-based approach to commercial game development. We are very extroverted when it comes to our work. We attend exhibitions, conventions, game jams, and miscellany events all the time. We are also very self-aware to the point of not wanting to show the same game over and over again, one event after another. This is why we tend to develop prototypes or updates to older prototypes just to showcase at a particular event. Around this time, we learned that the Greek government, in collaboration with Nordic Game, was going to sanction an international indie games expo, simply named Athens Games Festival, in October. As you can imagine, we were thrilled to see what we would create this time. Creating a new game, just because an exhibition is approaching, is Obviously far from a perfect strategy, it has, however, some unquestionable benefits. First, there is no negotiating the deadline. There is no way around the date of an event. You are either ready or you are not. Once we get started, sunk cost fallacy has just going until we finish, no matter the cost. This is probably the same reason we are still trying to make Rise work after 5 years. This works great for prototyping, but of course, you cannot just crunch through the entire development process, right, Rockstar? If I have learned anything after 6 years in game development, it's that player feedback is key. Guess what creating prototypes and immediately exhibiting them gets you? Yes, feedback. Pure, raw, unadulterated feedback. If you want my advice, be brave. Find it cheap.